Hi everybody, welcome to this video on Unit 1 Geography. We're going to start with the question, what is geography? And here's your definition: the study of places and the relationships between people and their environments. It's how you find stuff on a map, duh! Well, it's a little more complicated than that, but we're going to try to keep it simple for this presentation. So there's this thing called a globe, and it's where we live. It's planet Earth, and if you take it and you squash it down onto a map and flatten it out, you got 7 continents: Australia, Asia, Europe, Africa, North America, South America, and not really on this map, but down here is Antarctica. For this unit, we're going to focus only on North America, this continent here. So we're going to have you go to your unit packet, page 5, and find this map. Not this map, this map. And you might need a minute to do that, so pause the video, and then we're going to move on. And the first thing that we notice here is that on this map of North America, you can actually see the continent of Asia. Where is it? Can you find Asia on this map of North America? Well, it would be up here, right here. That is Asia. It's Russia. All right, Russia is a country in Asia, but Asia and North America almost touch, and that's going to be a very important fact for you to know for this unit. And the reason why they almost touch is at the top of the globe, all the continents come together. So now we're looking at the top of the Earth, looking straight down. Here is North America. Here is Asia. And you can see they're only maybe a little less than 100 miles away, the tip of Asia and Alaska, less than 100 miles away at the top of the globe. Of course, down here, go back to this map, if you were to sail off into the Pacific Ocean and head all the way around the world to Asia, of course, it's thousands of miles. But again, that's because it's a globe. And at the top of the globe, if you picture a basketball, if you put your finger at the top of the basketball, everything sort of comes together. But if you put your hands along the side of the basketball is much wider. So the world is basically a sphere, and a sphere is much wider at the middle than it is at the top. And the top of the world right here is Alaska, and again, that is North America. So we're going to label Asia on our map of North America, and you'll find out why a little bit later in this unit. We're going to completely ignore where it says Mississippi River and Appalachian Mountains. That's an activity that I used to do with students, but we're not going to do it for this unit this year. So label that Asia. This would be a good time to open your document, your unit packet in Kami. If you're not sure how to do that, there's a video on how to do that, and I would pause this video if you're unsure and go check out that video on how to open your unit packet in Kami and make annotations. Or, of course, you can use your paper copy if you have your paper copy handy. Okay, so we want to label 2 oceans. All right, these are basically the need-to-know facts for this unit. I'm not going to make you know everything about North America, but you need to know the basics. It is surrounded by 2 oceans, the Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. Now, kind of a funny story. I had a student once, the beginning of the year, we started this activity, and the student seemed to be a little frustrated, a little stuck, and I went over to check with them, and they asked me a question, which at first I thought was a kind of a silly question. They said, "Mr. West, is the land white or is the land gray?" And like I said, at first I thought it was a silly question, and then I thought about it, and I realized, have you ever seen those optical illusions where if you look at it one way, it looks like 2 vases, and if you look at the picture the other way, it looks like 2 faces? And I think that's what happens sometimes with students when they have a black and gray map or black and white map, is they have trouble seeing which way it's supposed to be. So I always recommend, if possible, to shade the water blue on a map. Make sure you know where the water is before you go any further with any map or map activity. You got to realize what's water and what's land. On this map, the white is the land and the gray is the water. That might be obvious to some people, but not to all. So again, if you can shade it in, that would be great. Or if you can just see it, that's not necessary. But you do need to label Pacific Ocean here on the left side of the map and Atlantic Ocean here on the right side. So you can pause the video and make sure that you label that before we move on. Now, there's some other bodies of water I need you to locate, and they are called the Great Lakes. On a physical map, so I'm going to scroll back to my slide here. On a physical map is a type of map that shows the different features and landforms like mountains and lakes and rivers. This is a physical map. It's not a political map. If it was a political map, it would show the boundaries of all the states. But it is sort of a political map because it does show where the countries are, Canada, US, and Mexico. But this is mostly a physical map. It shows the mountains are like this bumpy area here. You can see the Rocky Mountains, the Appalachian Mountains. And then it shows the Great Lakes. There are 5 of them. They're located here. Those are called the Great Lakes. We're going to circle those on our map in our packet. Circle and label the Great Lakes. Make sure again you can see that this is water. And then I'd like you to put an X on the Great Lake that is all the way to the right. And it is also the smallest Great Lake, at least on this map. I'm not sure if this map is accurate because I know Lake Erie is not really, they didn't draw Lake Erie in perfectly here. And I know Lake Erie is quite small. In fact, it's also rather shallow. It's one of I think it's the only Great Lake that freezes in the wintertime because it is so shallow compared to the other Great Lakes, including Lake Ontario, which I don't think ever freezes, although the shoreline might freeze. But the actual lake itself, if you go like a mile out into the lake, it never freezes. But kind of going off on a tangent there, make sure that you X that lake all the way to the right, because that is Lake Ontario. And one of my goals for this unit is that you will be able to find Lake Ontario on a map of North America. And the reason why I have that goal for you is I want you to be able to find your way home. On any map, you should be able to locate where you live. And so we're going to do that now because we're going to zoom in to this part of this map here. Actually, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. Why don't we pause? Make sure that you label that map. Pause the video if necessary. And now we're going to zoom in to the X, which is Lake Ontario. And voila, we have another map. But wait, it's not a map. It's actually a photograph. This is a satellite photograph of New York State. Well, it's a satellite photograph of the New York State region. And what they've done is they've drawn in this yellow line. This is computer generated. It's not real. If you go up in outer space, you don't see a real line around New York State. But that is the border of New York State. The rest of this is real. The rest of this is a photograph. I don't know, probably 100, 150 miles up in the air, if not higher. So take a look at this, and I want you to think about what the colors indicate on this map. What are the greens? What are the blues? That's probably the easier question. And what are those pink shades here and here and here and here and a lot of it down here? What is that pink coloring? What do you think that is? I'll let you pause the video for a minute and think about that. Well, the answer is, of course, the blue is water. So here's Lake Ontario. Here are the Finger Lakes. You may have heard of the Finger Lakes just south of us. The Native Americans had a myth. They said that the Creator placed his hand down on the earth and pressed, and it formed the Finger Lakes. I think they do look sort of like fingers, maybe more like skeleton fingers. This is the tail end of Lake Erie, so that's water. And down here is the Atlantic Ocean. And then you see rivers. There's a very large river here, the Hudson River. A smaller river here, the Mohawk River. And although you can't see it on the map, there's another river here, the Genesee River. Now, the pink coloring, the purple coloring, is actually cities. It's populated areas where there aren't trees and forests, because of course the green indicates trees. That's what you're looking at, is vegetation from way up in outer space. But the way that the light bounces off buildings and roads and sidewalks on this particular photograph, it turns out pink in a lot of areas. So I just wanted to show you the photograph of New York State before we move to the map. And here's the map on page 6 of your unit packet. If you are on Kami, you are probably going to have to find, there's a button that you can use, I think it's under the menu, to rotate the map on your screen so that it's right side up. Otherwise, it's going to be sideways on your screen. Or you can use your paper copy of your unit packet, page 6. Check it out and label Lake Ontario. We are not going to do this. Okay, if we were all here in the classroom and we had the textbooks available, we could label all these things. We're going to label some of them, but I want you to ignore that stuff for now and just label what I'm telling you to label, which is you need to be able to find Lake Ontario on a map of New York State. Again, I'll pause and let you do that. Now, some other things you need to find on a map of New York State. The Genesee River. So I guess I should have been clearer here. A few slides back, I mentioned the first thing you really should do on a map is locate the water versus the land. Now, on this map, it's tougher because some of the land is gray and some of the land is white. The land that is white is New York State. The darker gray here and here is water. This is water. These lines are gray. They're water. But this lighter gray down here is land. It's other states. Okay? This is Connecticut, Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, New Jersey is down here. This is Pennsylvania. But here, this is the Atlantic Ocean, so this would be water. I hope you can see that, and if you can't, you might want to shade in here, shade that blue, shade this blue, and shade this blue. Up here, this is Canada, so this is land. Once you can see that, I want you to label the Genesee River. Many of you have heard of the Genesee River. It flows through Rochester. It's an important landmark for us, and again, trying to find your way home. If you can find the Genesee River on a map of New York State, and if you can find Lake Ontario on a map of New York State, you can find Rochester, which is our home. Or Greece, which is really a suburb of Rochester. So please label the Genesee River. Label it as small as you can, because in a minute I'm going to be having you label 5 cities, and you're going to need to be able to fit those in on this map. Okay, well here I was getting a little confused myself, so I did shade in the water blue. And I want you to put an X on Long Island and label it. It's a lawn island, which is located at the bottom of New York. So label that. And then I'm going to have you label 5 cities. Buffalo, which is the furthest city, well, the furthest of these cities to the west. So this is west, right here is west on a map of New York State. This is east. If I had a way to label it, I would. When I create the video, I'll see if I can put some directions on there for you. We're going to start with Rochester. We're going to start with Buffalo. My mistake. Buffalo, which is really right on the border of New York. And over here would be Canada. Where the word Buffalo appears, that's actually Canada, but it's indicating this dot here. That's the city of Buffalo. Now we have a really major road that goes through New York State. It's called the Thruway, I-90. When you learn to drive, I'm sure you'll be on it eventually. And that road goes like this across New York State. I've traveled it many, many, many times because my wife's family is from Glens Falls, Queensbury area, up near Lake George, which is up here. So we drive back and forth here at least a couple times a year. And we take the Thruway. And when we take the Thruway, we start in Rochester and we pass through Syracuse and then through Albany, and then we end up in Glens Falls. So the next city, of course, label Rochester. Rochester is where the Genesee River flows into Lake Ontario. Rochester. If you continue traveling across the state, you will find the city of Syracuse right below this lake, which is called Oneida Lake. That's how you would find it on this map. Look for this little lake and then draw a dot under that lake and label it Syracuse. Albany is an important city for us because it is the capital city of New York State. It's like our Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. is the capital of the United States. Albany is the capital of New York State. So we're going to label Albany. It's on this river here. And the way I like to spot it is I look for where these two rivers come together, and it's just below that. So see this river here, that's the Mohawk River. This is the Hudson River. They kind of form like a Y sort of tipping on its side. Albany is right below that. You can put it right on the river. And then New York City down here at the far end of Long Island, right where it touches the Atlantic Ocean, actually where the Hudson River flows into the Atlantic Ocean, you'll want to label New York City. Okay, once you have labeled all of those cities, your maps in your packet should be complete for now. And then you can just make sure those are done. And at that point, our little mini lesson on geography for Unit 1 is complete.